Well, hey, the Cowboys won. They are 1-0. They did it in dominant fashion, and they paid Dak Prescott. We'll talk about it all tonight. Let's get to it. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with quick hitting videos in the same channel. Welcome, everyone. The Cowboys are 1-0. The Cowboys beat the Cleveland Browns fairly dominantly, by the way, and we have a lot to break down. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about the good, some of the bad. We'll talk about the ugly stuff, including Jake Ferguson's injury, and we already have some positive updates in that regard. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network just reported that he is not feared to have suffered an ACL injury. Of course, it is just Sunday night. He'll have an MRI on Monday as usual, and then we'll get an even more official update. Dak Prescott told reporters, though, that the Cowboys think they dodged a big one there. So it seems like we might get some positive news on the Jake Ferguson front. Jake himself told reporters that, hey, I could have played through it. So I don't know if that's just Jake Ferguson being an absolute savage, showing that he's got that dog in him, or if he seriously received that information from the medical staff and everyone is happy with where things are at. But we won't know until we know, and that will likely be tomorrow when there is an MRI and we get an official word from it. So let's wait on that. But Jake Ferguson, apparently positive updates coming out of Dallas. Well, actually coming out of Cleveland so far. We'll talk about the game, though. We'll also dive into Dak Prescott's contract later in the show. A lot happened on Sunday, but first, the Cowboys won 33-17, and I'm not even sure the scoreboard tells us the true story, because it feels to me like the Cowboys truly dominated this one. Let me know in the chat, who stole the show for you? Who is that one player, maybe one coach, that stole the show for you? Because I'm going to give you my answer right now. Defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer. There was a lot to like about the offense, and we'll get to it. But to me, today was all about that defense. Holy smokes. And there was so much to talk about. Gregory says in the chat, Eric Kendricks. Listen, that's one, right? You could talk about Eric Kendricks and the fact that we're going to get used to calling his name out very often when these games are being played. He had 2 sacks, by the way. Eric Kendricks once again showing that he's a reliable tackler, which is the reason why he has 8 seasons with 100 tackles minimum per year. Eric Kendricks showed up in a big way on Sunday, because not only was he getting dirty, getting those tackles in, but he showed how versatile he is. There was one play where the Cowboys sent a blitz, and it's the same blitz that we talked about multiple times during the preseason, where Mike Zimmer sends 2 blitzers through the same gap, this being the B gap, meaning between the guard and the tackle. He sends 1 linebacker, he sends 1 defensive back through there, and in the meantime, he drops back 2 of the defensive ends. So he drops back his 2 edge rushers and has those blitzers attacking the same gap. In that play, Eric Kendricks gets to the quarterback, no problem. In the meantime, you got Micah Parsons dropping back into coverage. I believe the other one was, I cannot remember if it was D-Law or Nealand, but he also drops back into coverage. Deshaun Watson is so confused, he cannot do anything, just takes a sack, which, hey, a confused Deshaun Watson was seen a whole lot on Sunday, by the way. Mike Zimmer was in the head of Deshaun Watson with everything that he was throwing his way. And of course, receiving hits from Micah Parsons, who hit him 4 times this game, according to the official stats from the NFL. And the 2 sacks from Kendricks, and then there was the big hit from Jordan Phillips late in the game. He's going to have some nightmares with the Cowboys. The Marvin Overshown as well, right? But yeah, Kendricks is a great answer. But here's my favorite part of it. You've got Kendricks in there, and then Julio brings up Overshown. And Toxic also brings up Overshown. And Blake says Kendricks. How good does it feel to have linebackers, guys? How good does it feel to have linebackers. How about Overshown, though? Joe says Overshown is agent 0. Rowdy got to give up Overshown's number. Let's talk about Overshown for a second. There's one play where he is running. The play is flowing to the right side of the offense, top of our screen when we were watching live. And Overshown is coming from the backside of the play. Nick Vigil, who was called up for game day, and he played a fair amount of snaps when Eric Kendricks was getting an IV because he was dealing with some hydration problems. Nick Vigil is to the play side. Overshown is to the backside. Overshown gets there so much quicker than Vigil, even though he's coming from behind. And in the meantime, Vigil, sure, he also slows down because of a little bit of a coverage assignment, but you see Overshown just going fast, man, at the ball carrier. And that wasn't even the only time that we saw something similar. Shout out to Foods the King, who tweeted out the same play, by the way. Overshown made Micah Parsons look slow. That's how fast Overshown is out there on the field playing. And remember, this is his very first regular season game in the NFL, and this is how good he looked. I'm all in on Overshown, and it was very telling that he was out there as the starting linebacker alongside Eric Kendricks, because he's easily the guy that played the most. I'm looking forward to seeing the snap counts come out, but Overshown was there frequently, and he was making plays both in coverage and just flowing through to the sideline with so much speed, so much smoothness, taking good angles. Overshown was so impressive today, man. Overshown was, to me, easily one of the biggest winners of the game and one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this Mike Zimmer defense. So I had to start with him when we talked about the Cowboys defense. But just the fact that you're talking about Kendricks and you're talking about Overshown, and hell, even Maris Leofau had some moments in this game, just gets you excited about the way that Mike Zimmer is running things. Now, one big note from the Mike Zimmer defense today for me is relating to the linebackers. That play that I just talked about with the blitz, that was the only play all game long that Micah Parsons was not lined up in the defensive line, whether that's the edge or the interior. And on Thursday, we talked about how this might not be the game where you want to get cute with Micah because the Browns were playing with 2 backup offensive tackles. So you might want to get cute with Micah and move him around and do this and do that and do the other. But at the end of the day, Micah just had this unique opportunity to go and exploit a mismatch because the Browns were down their 2 starting offensive tackles. And Mike Zimmer did exactly that. He just left Mike on the defensive line, moved him around everywhere, right? So he was playing from the inside, playing from the outside, but he was in the trenches every single time. That was pretty good to see, man. To me, that got me excited. I have my notebook always when I'm watching these games, and I had a special box down here to keep track of Parsons off-ball defensive line, off-ball snaps. And there's just a 1 mark there because we didn't see Micah move around a whole lot in terms of going to the box and doing all of that. Good stuff from Mike Zimmer overall. How about Kaylin Carson, the rookie cornerback? Sure, he allowed a touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. Sure, he was bitten here and there. But Kaylin Carson was flying around, making big hits, getting his hands on the ball as well, and nearly came away with like 2 or 3 picks. That was how good Carson was coming into this game, and I was excited about it. I was nervous about it, though, before the game. That was one of the mismatches that I thought the Browns were going to be able to exploit. They were not able to do that at all. Kaylin Carson was hanging in there with that versus Amari Cooper, by the way, because he was matched up against Cooper a big chunk of this game, and he was looking good, man. There was one play where it seemed like he could have had a pick 6, maybe overshot that a little bit. I even thought watching live that, he got excited about the pick 6, maybe overshot that a little bit, but it also looked like maybe he was rather slow to get there, which might be the case once we look at the replay. But Kaylin Carson, to me, looked pretty good. Physical, but again, going back to what we talked about on Thursday, we saw Mike Zimmer help him out. Mike Zimmer was playing with too high coverages. He was getting his cornerbacks some safety help. And there was a lot of simulated pressures. There was a lot of coverage rolling, a lot of disguising with what they were doing on defense. And you could see that Zimmer was in Deshaun Watson's head. Zimmer was making Watson struggle. Tom Brady was in the broadcast booth talking about how Mike Zimmer was one of the toughest defensive coordinators that he ever had to go up against because he's always playing these mind games with you. And that was palpable on Sunday's game. And I think that's one of the most promising things that we could have seen from Mike Zimmer in day one. Trevon Diggs, I believe, or it was maybe Micah Parsons, post-game, according to the beat reporters, they were talking about how, oh, this is nothing. This is just phase one of what Mike Zimmer is trying to do with the defense. And I don't know if it gets any more exciting than that, because it sure sounds like the Cowboys defense is going to be messing with quarterbacks all season long. That's on the defensive side of the ball. I think a lot of people are asking about Mazi Smith. I honestly always like to wait to comment on nose tackles until I get the all 22, because it is tough otherwise. But I will say this. I didn't see Mazi struggle. I didn't notice that. And I think that is telling, right? If you're a nose tackle, you're not supposed to light up the stat sheet. You're not supposed to show up on all of these highlight reels. You're supposed to do your job. And someone will talk about you, but not during the live game. So I'm excited about seeing that as well. There was one play that did stand out to me where he just sheds off the blocker and makes the tackle 1 yard gain for the Browns. That one stood out to me, and I was like, oh, okay, nice from Mazi. And overall, I think he had a good game, but I do want to wait a little bit, watch the all 22, come back to you with a better answer on that. But Mazi Smith even looked good to me. Jordan Phillips had that big hit on Deshaun Watson. I don't think he played a whole lot. We'll see when we get the final snap count numbers, but it didn't seem to me that there was a lot of rotation at defensive tackle. We'll find out, though. Before I turn the page to the offense, and before I look at some of your comments right now, here's a thought. Tyler Guyton started for the Cowboys today. Marshawn Eland was very significant in the rotation because he was playing a lot. Cooper Beebe was starting. Obviously, no fourth rounder. Go to the fifth round. Kaylin Carson was starting. Brian Florner was inactive, by the way, for this game. But my point is, so much contribution from the rookies compared to 2023. Mazi Smith played, 25% of his snaps in week one as a rookie. You had Luke Schoonmaker being tight end 2. You had the Marvin Overshown out for the year. You had William Fehoko being a healthy scratch all year, and Fehoko was a fourth rounder, by the way. This is already such a different rookie class. The Cowboys are asking a lot of their rookies, and it doesn't matter. They're delivering. And we'll talk about Guyton in a bit here. But first, Gregory is right. We've talked about Overshown. We talked about Kendricks. Let's talk about the edge rushers for a little bit here. D-Law was on fire, man. D-Law was on fire on this game. Run defense, pass rusher, though. As a pass rusher, I think he excelled. And Micah, man, the same. He reminded us why he's always on the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I talked about him getting those snaps off of the edge. What he did with them was the most important thing. Lawrence ended the game with 2 sacks, just like Kendricks, had 4 QB hits, and 3 tackles for loss. Like, that combination should get him Defensive Player of the Week, maybe, out of the NFC. Man, 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss, and you add to that a forced fumble. D-Law was a Defensive Player of the game, I think, for the Cowboys, and he should be of the week maybe across the entire NFL. Now, Micah had a big game himself. 1 sack, 5 QB hits, 9 pressures, according to Next Gen Stats. And he was doing it from everywhere on the field. Micah was drawing these false start penalties as well, had at least 2 of them against the right tackle. He had them fearing him. And there were a lot of plays where just Deshaun Watson was scared or he was running. I think they broke down that offense, honestly. And a lot of people will try to diminish what this win is for the Cowboys. But remember, the Browns were an 11-win team last year. They were in the playoffs. They had no starting quarterback, and they had those numbers. They were a pretty good team. They were playing at home. They were the favorites entering this week. This is a big win for the Cowboys. We shouldn't overlook it just because now the Cowboys won it and we're going to take credit away from them. Hell no. This was a great game for Dallas, one that you should be happy about. Mike McCarthy did say after the game, this was a sloppy second half. With that, I do agree. Like the second half, offensively, wasn't pretty at all. I think even Dak Prescott was misfiring a lot of these passes. Like he was not hitting his receivers. There were some plays that you could have argued that, hey, that could have been a turnover-worthy play, honestly. So that was not pretty. Not even the running game was pretty, I think, all game long even. But the second half was pretty sloppy, in my opinion. And it might have a little bit to do with the game script, but also the Cowboys do know they got to clean that up before we move on in the season. But anyways, let's speak on the offense for a little bit. Dak Prescott, first game as a $60 million quarterback, completed 59% of the passes, 179 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 5 yards per attempt, a passer rating of 85.3. I know those numbers don't sound great. First half was pretty good, though. I'll give him that. First half was pretty good. You saw in the first quarter that amazing throw to CD Lamb on the sideline where CD just goes like this, one hands it, has a tight window to the sideline to work with. What a dime, what a catch from these two. I like that concept because the Browns are playing single high in that particular play, and there's a screen pass design to the left. So Dak just gets the snap, looks to the left, draws the free safety, and then boom, turns and hits the one-on-one with CD Lamb. Just great execution, great play design. I'm assuming Dak has the ability to throw that screen pass as well if that's what the defense dictates, but just a great play. And then later in the game, you have this awesome throw from Dak Prescott, in my opinion, versus the Browns all-out blitz, where he's got trips to the left, and he's got Brandon Cooks as the number 3 from the sideline in, right? So he's got 2 receivers on the outside running slants to the inside, just drawing that defense underneath, drawing that defense inside. And Brandon Cooks runs like this corner route to the end zone. Dak gets a free blitzer in his face through the B gap between the guard and the tackle. Those blitzers are always more dangerous than those that are coming from the outside, just because from the distance factor. Dak is just going away, fading away, throws the touch pass while he is going backwards. Go look at the replay, or when you look at the highlights tonight, or when you look at that particular replay, notice where Brandon Cooks is when Dak fires that throw. Because, man, I'm telling you, some people, when you talk about anticipation in throws, you're talking about as he got out of the break or before he got out of the break. Brandon Cooks did not even begin his move to get into the break when Dak had already let that rip. Perfect touch, perfect accuracy. What a touchdown versus the blitz. I don't understand why teams keep blitzing Dak, by the way. That just makes no sense to me. I understand doing the whole post-snap cute things versus Dak because that seems to work. Why would you blitz Dak Prescott? He's been consistently good versus the blitz for so many years. The Browns did it, though. The Browns paid for it. And again, I do think second half was sloppy. I think there were some bad throws from Dak today, but overall, pretty strong game and pretty strong day for the $240 million quarterback. We'll talk more about that later. Before, some more thoughts on the offense, though. Running game. Let's talk about the running game. How would you grade the running game? Let me know in the chat. I want to see what you guys have to say. How would you grade the running game on this beautiful Sunday today? How would you go about that? Toxic says, Trey Lance truthers, I bet, need a hug today. Man, I can tell you I got some questions. Hey, can Trey Lance play today? Can he do it? And I was like, nah, man, he's not even QB2. He's not eligible to play. Katharina goes with the D. Toxic says C. Gregory goes with B-. The real Darrell says B. I would go with C plus or C. I would give this run game a little bit of a low grade, honestly. Rico Dowdle had 3.3 yards per carry. Ezekiel Elliott had 4 yards per carry. Let's say C plus, I think, or B-. C plus, B- range to me is a little bit fair. But here are some things that we learned about the running game. Zeke appeared to really be the number one guy on the committee, right? He got the start, and he got the majority of the snaps in the first half. In the second half, it was a little bit more of the Rico Dowdle show. My question there would be, was it because of the scoreboard, or was that always the plan, where we're going to go out there, we're going to start Zeke, and then come the second half, we're going to hit them with the fresh legs of running back to Rico Dowdle. And 10 to 80 carries, they ended up somewhere along the same lines. But Zeke did get the first half priority. So that kind of tells you that, hey, Zeke is actually the guy, the number one guy. I'll give it to Zeke. I think it was a good performance. I think you could even argue it was a better performance than Rico. I mean, the numbers say it was, right? 4 yards per carry versus 3.3 yards per carry. So you got to give the edge to Elliott. The big two plays that stood out about Zeke were definitely, number one, the touchdown. Because I think that if Zeke is going to hold on to this number one job, he's going to have to be efficient in these goal line, red zone situations, because that was the whole narrative about bringing back Zeke. It was, the Cowboys are missing that guy that can punch it in, that can turn these red zone trips into touchdowns or help achieve that. Zeke got that TD. I thought that was huge for him individually. Then there was the blitz pickup from Zeke. Watching it live, I could have sworn he was going to be called for holding, because it's a play-action pass where the Browns send a blitzer, and it's an awkward spot for Zeke, honestly, because he's getting out of the fake, and the blitzer is untouched, headed his way. So Zeke just walls him, but cannot get in a comfortable position to use his hands or anything. But Zeke shows like that veteranship where he's turning his hands downwards as to not be called for the holding, just doing what he can with his shoulders, with his arms, almost wrestling the guy. I thought that was a great rep from Zeke. Honestly, you got to give it to him. You got to recognize it. I did laugh out loud when right off the bat, Zeke tried to hurdle a dude in the first play of the game. I was like, that is a rep where he's trying to convince everyone. Who called me old? I'm not old. I can leap over a defender. I thought that was pretty funny in a good way. I'm not knocking on Zeke at all, but I did absolutely laugh when that happened, because I was like, oh, okay, we get it. We get it. You're not old. Congratulations, right? That was what that felt like, that moment in time. And Blake says, I think we'll see Dalvin Cook next week. Maybe, but also maybe not, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is with Dalvin Cook, honestly. I don't know they know what their plan is. I kind of feel like that's one of the, Dalvin Cook is still available, we should get him. Like, that's someone we know. I might be wrong. I just think if they were going to add him, if they really liked him, why wouldn't they have just signed him earlier in training camp or something like that. Or maybe Dalvin Cook didn't want to be signed to a practice squad and then settled in for the job because he wasn't getting any other 53-man roster offers. I wonder, honestly, what their plan is with that. Early guess? No, I don't think Dalvin Cook is going to be called up next week. I don't think 1 week is going to make the difference for them. And I don't think we saw like a terrible game out of Zeke, a terrible game out of Rico Dowdle where they are like, all right, we'll spice it up. We'll call up Dalvin Cook. I don't think that will happen, honestly. And Anton here makes a very good point regarding the entire game and the sloppy second half, for example. He says, don't we count this as a preseason game for our starters or offensive starters? We've got plenty of room for improvement across the board on offense, yet they did play out with less penalties than I figured, 15 or more. Let me get you the exact number of penalties. There were a lot of penalties on this game, 11 APs. So 11 penalties for the Cowboys, 11 for the Browns. The Cowboys got called for 85 yards, though. The Browns only for 64. There were some calls on this game that you gotta hate, though, in my opinion, but maybe a topic for another day. I will say this, I agree with Anton to a point. This is the first game of the starters on offense. So you gotta be like, sure, they looked sloppy in the second half, but also see they didn't show up to training camp all year long. You didn't see Dak play with them. You gotta give them some room for error, in my opinion. I do agree with that. Isidro says no update on Ferguson's injury, and for those of you who just joined, the only update that we've gotten so far, we talked about this earlier on the show, is they don't believe he tore his ACL, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. McCarthy said that Jake Ferguson was in good spirits. He wasn't wearing a brace. He wasn't in crutches post-game. And Dak Prescott told reporters, I think we dodged a big one. Jake Ferguson said, I could have played through it. So it seems like the Cowboys are optimistic regarding Jake Ferguson's status. We'll know more tomorrow, though, when there's an MRI and we get a more official update. So that is the update on the Jake Ferguson side of things. Something to talk about. Something to monitor, going into Monday. Now, one more thing about the Aubrey thing. Let's talk about this. Joel says, should have kicked the 71-yard field goal. Let's talk about this. Number one, how infuriating was it when we saw that was not going to count? Because Brandon Aubrey, had nailed that. That was going in out of 66 yards. He was going to tie Justin Tucker. Brandon Aubrey was going to be the co-owner of an NFL record. That would have been dope to see. Having said that, they get called back 5 yards, delay of game. It's going to be a 71-yarder, and it seemed like the Cowboys were going to try it. I don't know. I would not bet against Brandon Aubrey getting that, honestly. The way that we've seen him kick, I was very intrigued about seeing that attempt. I thought, hey, this might end up being such an epic story. Him nailing it from 66 yards out, getting that called back, and then nailing it out of 71 yards, that would have been awesome. The Cowboys didn't do it, though. Here is why I'm okay with it. Because I know a lot of people were like, oh, come on, they should have done it. I understand that mindset. By that point, the Cowboys were up significantly. We are fans. We want to see some wild stuff happen on TV. I don't blame anybody for being pissed at it not happening. I, however, watched the 2013 Iron Bowl. The risk-reward there that coaches have to work with when they're making that call is the reason why the Cowboys did not kick that, right? Imagine that whoever is back there in the end zone catches that ball, and you've got offensive linemen on the field, you've got tight ends, you've got dudes who cannot tackle. That might go back for a touchdown. The Browns received the opening kickoff in the second half. Imagine that you hand them 14 points unanswered when you have the game in the bag. It just didn't make sense. It would have been a little bit stubborn, honestly, to go for the 71-yarder. It would have been stubborn. Would I have enjoyed the chaos out of trying a 71-yarder? Sure. But you didn't have anything to gain, in my opinion. So, and you had a lot to lose, maybe. So, yeah, in other words, man, I agree with the call of not going for the 71-yarder. I think it would have been fun. I'll hit you with an additional update here from Todd Arker from ESPN. ACL looks to be intact upon initial testing of tight end Jake Ferguson. So this is just kind of like a compliment to Ian Rappaport's report. But there you go. That's what the Cowboys believe right now. His ACL is intact, which is pretty damn promising because that was concerning as hell. Gregory says Mike McCarthy needs to learn how to use the clock. No excuse for the clock delay. Now, that is very true. Should we be on Mike McCarthy for not calling that timeout? He was seemingly pissed at the referees calling for that push-up time, maybe from the 25-second mark. I honestly did not see exactly what went down. I don't know if it should have been a delay of game. I don't know if they handled the clock properly. But you're watching the play clock, right? Like, forget about what the referees are doing. You are monitoring the play clock. You got to figure that out. You got to be like, hey, timeout, right? So I agree with that. That I would put 100% on Mike McCarthy. That was a sloppy process as well, for sure. So anyways, man, let me look at my notebook here very quickly, see what we're missing. We've talked about Overshown, Carson, CD. How about those CD sweeps that we saw? We saw like 3 of them today. I like that. That's an easy way to get your guy the ball, your best player on offense, your best playmaker at least. Easy ways, easy touches, and they were pretty efficient. CeeDee Lamb finished with what? He had 3 rushes for 25 yards, average of 8.3. His longest was 12 yards, so it's not like all of those came in one play. I like that. I think that's another way of getting CeeDee Lamb the ball in an easy way. That's like those easy buttons that we like to talk about so much when we were missing them from the Kellen Moore offense. So I like those ways of getting CeeDee the ball. What else, man? We've got the sack there. We covered that blitz, that unique blitz. How about Hunter Lipke? 2 grabs, 25 yards. No, 18 yards, excuse me. One of them was a 12-yard catch. I want to see Hunter Lipke weaponized. I want to see Hunter Lipke be a pass threat to the defense, because then that's a mismatch creator. What do you do as a defense when you've got a fullback that can catch but can also block? I'm excited about that, man. Hunter Lipke should get the ball more often, and I am team weaponize Hunter Lipke, man. That's something that we want to see. I think that's pretty much all of my initial thoughts, man. Trevon Diggs getting that pick felt so good. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You probably are, because it's a stat that everyone throws around. Trevon Diggs leads the NFL in interceptions since 2021. The dude missed 15 games last year, and he still leads the NFL since 2021 in interceptions made. Had another one for himself. Kaylin Carson was so close in many of those reps. Here's the thing that intrigues me, though, about this whole thing. Oh, by the way, quick thought, parentheses. We talked about Kendricks having 2 sacks, having 3 tackles for loss. Oh, no, that was the 3 tackles for loss was Lawrence, actually. Sorry, we talked about Kendricks having 2 sacks, having 2 QB hits, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass deflection. He also had the interception where Micah just went up, swatted that up in the air, and just led to Kendricks intercepting that. So that was pretty cool as well. But Carson getting his hands in the ball, and then Trevon Diggs nearly having a second pick. This all makes me think maybe Mike Zimmer is not as conservative in the ball hawk department as we thought he would be. Because one of the big things going from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer was maybe they don't pick as many balls off, but maybe they are more consistent breaking things up, getting those tackles in the sidelines. But maybe Mike Zimmer heard Al Harris out, and he was like, okay, yeah, we'll be a ball hawking team. That's exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. We'll talk more about this game the rest of the week, ladies and gentlemen. For now, though, I will let you rest. Have a great Sunday night. Enjoy Rams versus Lions. root for Sam Laporta to get a touchdown because I've got him on my main fantasy league, and I want to win it since it's our 15-year anniversary on that league. So I'm excited about that. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. Make sure you tune in tomorrow to the morning show. If you didn't catch the game day show, go check that out. It's in the channel already with Jesse Holly and Will Steele. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.